So for those of us who are not as familiar with Queens Museum, can y'all tell us a little bit more about it? I run around the museum like almost every week. You know what I'm saying? I do my runs. And Flushing Meadow Park is right next to probably the most iconic monument of Queens, right? The Unisphere. So it's a very picturesque, in a very picturesque location. But I'm curious, but frankly speaking, I don't think a lot of people have visited because of probably the location or are as familiar with it, right? So if you could just kind of introduce us to the museum, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, the museum. I think the museum is just it's a fucking amazing museum that shows art, right? And it's like, oh, that's pretty basic, but I think why the thing is like, oh, not a lot of people know about it is because a lot of people aren't really New Yorkers. You know what I mean? In a sense of, you know, not to go negative, but people are like, oh, I lived in New York for 10 years. Where'd you hang out? Oh, Manhattan and Williamsburg. You didn't live in New York. You know what I mean? Like, I've been to all kinds of spots all over the city, upstate, this, that, you know, Long Island, da, da, da. That's being a New Yorker. So, you know, if you get into New York, there's a lot of things like the Queens Museum that are outside of Manhattan that are incredible. But the Queens Museum is a museum that's showing the highest level forms of all forms of art, but it's also super engaged in its community. The reason why I work with the Queens Museum is when I had my first meeting with them, it was during COVID, and I came in and I saw that they were feeding over 1,000 people, families a week during COVID. You know, they could have just been shut down. Nothing would have been wrong with that. They were making Sally and her team, her colleagues. Sally's the director of the museum. They were feeding 1,000 people in Queens who were out of work or whatever situation due to COVID and needed food to live. So that's why I work with them, because that means something to me. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not like a gated establishment that's not having direct conversations with the local community. Instead, it's something they're actively engaging.
Yeah. So they're a museum. Museum's a museum. You know, people want to know what a museum is. You just Google that, Wikipedia that. But there's more to Queens Museum, and I see that through the things they do to support the community. You know, they're instituting this thing. I'm really excited about it. I know Angelo is as well as Queens Teens.
Queens Teens.
Yeah, you know, they also hold artist residencies for artists. Yeah, so it's just an amazing institution. It's been around for a long time, and it's beautiful. Yeah, and I'm happy to be involved, and I hope to keep working with them.
And just to add on that, Jaeki, I think the I guess like the key phrase is like it's a museum, but it's also a community center. You know, where normally, you know, like those families that Tremaine is talking about, you know, through the food bank that the museum was providing each Wednesday, and it still is providing. You know, once again, it's just accessibility to a place that normally, you know, like the Met, the MoMA, the Whitney, like nobody was, you know, feeding their local community. You know, so a place like the Queens Museum to step up and initiate that kind of program all on their own is huge. You know what I mean? So it's like they're paying attention to their surroundings and being super conscious. You know, and you know, for me, honestly, my relationship with the museum it's a brand new one ever since I moved to Jackson Heights 4 years ago. It's literally, you know, it's in my backyard, you know, so I go to the Unisphere always to tap in for inspiration. You know, like my first A6 drop, it's a straight Flushing Meadow Park inspo, you know, so like as long as all that time that I spent sitting in front of Unisphere and taking that in, it's like the museum is right there too, you know, so for me, it goes hand in hand. And yeah, love the Queens Teens program that they've been kicking off, supporting like over 100 local Queens high school students through mentorship, and that's something, you know, all of us want to get more involved in. You know, what I love about the museum is that it's really approachable, it's human, and it feels accessible.
100. So let's talk about the foundation. You know, you guys are both from Queens. Well, you said Jamaica and Richmond Hill, right? What was the upbringing like? What was it like growing up in Queens as young adolescents? And I guess the second part to that question is, I feel like Queens is synonymous with it's a transit borough, right? A lot of immigrants, when they first come to New York, they kind of settle in Queens and then they move off to Long Island, Jersey, what have you. And therefore, I feel like it's always been like a hub with different countries and people from different cultures, all just like converging. Did you guys have like an American word, non-American upbringing at home? And how did that some of that like influence what you guys are currently doing right now?
I mean, for me, I couldn't pick a better place to grow up in. You know what I mean? Like inside my house was South America, it was Ecuador to the bone. And then when I stepped outside past my stoop, I was in Trinidad, Guyana. You know what I mean? Like all my best friends growing up were West Indian or Pakistani. And then the random like Puerto Rican family that moved over from East New York. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. It's just almost every girl that I've dated that's not from New York, like trying to explain to them the Queen's upbringing and kind of like how it was. I heard the term now is called salad bowl. It's not a melting pot, though. Salad, everybody's kind of mixed together. Like Queens never had to be diverse. It is what it is. It's always been that way. You know, like my neighbor across the street was Jewish. You know, like my other neighbor next door to me, like I said, was Trinidadian. And then I had like a Colombian family. It was just, it's such a beautiful place to grow up in. And you really don't understand the politics behind the borough till like you get a little older, you know, about like redlining and how segregated the borough really is, you know, and how there's a misconception of like how the borough is soft, you know. But it's just like if you go to the last stop on the A, Far Rock, or you get off on the E on South End or Jamaica, you know what I'm saying? Like most people don't go that far, you know, far into the borough. But the reason you have to go that far to get to like a hood is because the shit's been segregated. It's been redlined for years. You know what I'm saying? You got to go through like 20 white neighborhoods to get to basically like a POC black or brown community.
To add on to that, so we moved to New York in 1981. I was 3 months old.
From where?
From Georgia.
Okay.
So my dad got a job at CBS. So Angelo's made me remember something. My dad, we lived in Flushing, Queens first 9 years. My parents couldn't afford a house to buy in Flushing, Queens or anywhere. The only place they could afford to buy a house was in Jamaica, Queens. You know what I mean? Because the prices were so low because it was kind of post-crack epidemic and nobody wanted to live there. And the level of crime and stuff there. But that's the only place my dad could afford a place. And but when we moved to Flushing, speaking about the redlining and segregation, this is how my dad we got the apartment in Flushing. My dad kept calling places to go to view houses, and they would hang up the phone. You know why they hung up the phone? Because his voice, he sounded like a Southern black man. And they kept hanging up the phone or saying, actually the place is sublet, this place is leased already, lying. So my dad got fed up and he picked up the phone. My dad told me the story for the first time 7 years ago, because we were in a movie theater and an ad came up for like a rental agency. And he was like, yeah, right. They say they want to help you, but this is the truth. He said to the person, I remember his name was Mr. Lee. He said, do you rent to N-words? I gotta find someone for my family. And the guy was like silent on the phone. And that's how we got a place in Flushing.
Wow.
We couldn't buy a place in Flushing. Wow. And we had to move to St. Albans, you know what I mean? By the Rock. And that's where I grew up the rest of my life until I moved to London in 2010. And, it was an adventure. It was a lot of fun, but also it was wild too. And I've seen a lot of tragedy and a lot of good people not make it out like I did. So that was my childhood.
Got you.
It was like the Sandlot meets Boys in the Hood.
That's pretty That's pretty accurate.
Accurate
Yeah.
description.
And throw in some buses.
Yeah, throwing some buses. And also the thing about Queens too is it's a true fair zone.
Yeah.
You gotta take that bus. Where I'm at, you gotta take that bus 20 minutes to the train.
Yeah, 100.
That's why, it'll be hard for St. Albans and South Jamaica and North Jamaica, Queens to get gentrified because people don't want to. Because you got to take that bus. You got to be around the people. You can't just like Uber or get to the train. You got to be around. It's hard to gentrify it. But yeah, that's where I grew up.
Yeah. Now I could totally relate with that. I grew up in Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, in that whole intersection where there's heavy train traffic. But then when my family bought a house in East Flushing, there is that 25-minute Q28 ride to go to take the 7 train, right? So there's like that entire bubble of Queens that pretty much you need a whip just to get around, right? And so it's going to be hard for people to just kind of come in and just build a new condo and get accessibility.
I'll say this too, because Sponto came out here, I think like last November, and I took him on a Queens tour. Like I took him to Queens. I started in Queensbridge. Then I took him to Roosevelt, to Ruzi, over by the Ecuadorian trucks. I took him to go eat some ceviche with me. Then I took him to the Sphere. And then from there, I took him to my old neighbor. I took him to Richmond Hill. And I started telling him the story, like how segregated Queens is. And I think what's also really important about myself and Tremaine is to get the other version of Queens out there. Right. Like that. There's a narrative of Queens that's out there that's being told. But that's not the Queens that I grew up in. It's not the Queens that Tremaine, the Queen, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people can't talk about Jamaica Ave.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't talk about the Coliseum. They can't talk about Merrick, Archer, Guy Brewer. You know what I mean? Like, they can't talk about Liberty Ave. They can't talk about Far Rock. They can't talk about the A line, the J line. You know what I'm saying? Like, cats don't know that life that me and Tremaine grew up on. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for me, that's why it's so. What we're doing at the Queens Museum, that's why it's important. Right. We're speaking up for the people from the other side of Queens. You know what I'm saying? And like that's why I love what we're doing, because a lot of, like unless you walk Foch, then we didn't walk the same Queens. Unless you went to Lincoln Park, we didn't grow up in the same
Lincoln Park, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I played Little League, and that like that's why I earned my stripes. You know what I'm saying? So like that's the Queens I know, but then the kind of like the other opposite end of the spectrum is I went to Bayside High, so I got to learn that side of Queens. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know that you could grow a lawn in Queens until I went to Bayside. That shit was like Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah. But like my bus ride was from the Ave with the 31, where basically like the whole bus was just all black kids and me. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like for me, like I've always been, my junior high school experience was like being bused into another neighborhood for all the cats from like Southside or Jamaica Ave. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like. Yeah, like I honestly, that's why me and Tremaine gravitated towards one another, because we understood. We're cut from the same kind of cloth.
100. Yeah, I think when you mentioned Jamaica, there's like Jamaica Estates, which is like a whole different world as well. And I think I feel like these type of details that you're providing is important. It's important context for people that are already confused about Queens, and they kind of see it just as like, Sunnyside has cheap rent. You know what I'm saying? So
Sunnyside, Jackson Heights, Astoria, beautiful neighborhoods, but that's not all of Queens. There's a whole other side to Queens. Like when I took Sponto to Linden Boulevard, he was like, "Is this the Linden?" He was like, "Is this the Linden that tribe?" I was like, "Yeah, this is the Linden that tribe." Yep. I took him to Linden and Merrick, and he was like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah,
it's different, man. It's different, and it's just that's why it's good to touch back and do the Queens Museum thing, because even to get to Queens Museum from Jamaica Ave, that's a mission. But not just not a mission physically, mentally, you know what I mean, proverbially. To make it from where Angelo grew up to downtown New York, he's the only one. That's another reason. We became friends, yes, because we have similar interests and, we became friends and love each other. But also, when you see someone that look like you that's from the same neighborhood, you're like, oh, you went through the war too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, because the war I had to fight was all kinds. my friends, OGs being like, why you hang out downtown?
Yeah. Why you dress like that?
They don't want us.
Why you dress like that? Yeah.
They don't want.
They don't want. You gotta take that long train back to Queens after you hanging out. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what the Stripes is like. Yo, you want to hang out and go to Sway on a Monday or wherever? Go there and then go hop on the E train and try to stay. You gotta stay awake because you don't want to get robbed.
Yeah.
You gotta stay awake to get to that last stop, and then after you get to the last stop,
and then you take the other bus.
Other bus if you don't got enough money. If you don't, or you take the dollar van if it's still
the dollar
running.
van.
Yep.
If not, you got to take the bus, or if you got the $10 for the cab. A lot of time I have that, you know what I mean. So I start working.
There was no Uber.
Working, and making a little more money. Then I could take the Long Island Railroad. Mm-hmm. Even that, I had to stay awake on the Long Island Railroad, mess around, wake up in Central Islip.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I'm gonna end up and
all that. So many things, you know what I mean. And you know, there was very few of us that transversed the threshold between Queens, the hood, even going from the hood to the white, the middle class neighborhoods. You know, I remember I went to, because I grew up in Flushing first. I went to elementary school at PS 107. There were like 3 black kids there.
Where in Flushing? Where you at?
Northern Boulevard, 162 Northern Boulevard.
Oh, that's where my parents' house is.
Yeah,
like literally on 162nd and North.
Yeah, I used to live next to the video store that was there. I don't know if that video store is still there. My parents used to own a video store in East Elmhurst in the 80s. But anyway, you know, I used to go back. So I had white friends, and they all kind of not dipped on me, but I remember this kid John Falchicchio. He was like, "Oh, my mom wants to drop you home." She dropped me home. She seen a reef on a corner where the shooting was. She ain't never let her son come see me again. You know what I mean? That very different things we experiencing. You know, not just to go negative, but then you know, just the stuff we experienced. Even like in Queens where I grew up, all you saw was everybody was black except for the police. Bodega was Hispanic people. Chinese food store was Asian people. Everyone else was black. The bus driver, the mail guy, everyone was black, 100%. Except for businesses were owned by white people. You know, just even that, seeing the difference of that between neighborhoods, I was learning. Like, oh, there's something off in the world. There's something off. I gotta pay attention, see what's going on.
Right. Yeah. Man, that was those are important details, man. I'm glad that we were able to get that across. But I kind of want to touch upon like influences culturally, right? Mm-hmm. I'm very prideful of my Queens upbringing, and I could list like elements that help to shape, you know, how I move in the workforce, and you know, like what are some of the key, like if you guys could like reference back, like what are some like creative influences growing up in Queens outside of, you know, like we were talking about the neighborhoods and the cultures around it, but you know, if you have to like pinpoint artists, musicians, or even fashion brands that probably consciously or subconsciously influenced, you know, the type of work that you guys are currently doing now.
You want me to?
Go ahead, Lil.
No, go ahead.
As far as what influence the type of work I'm doing, Angelo, he's one of the main influences. Again, Angelo's first probably dude, I know it looked like me, that I didn't even know what art director meant, what it was when he worked at Nom de Guerre. Even just, I didn't really even understand what he did, but he was always so welcoming, and we didn't even talk about work, but just being like, when I started learning what he did, I'm like, oh, this is my friend. And just even seeing he made a t-shirt and he flipped the low graphic and it's in a store and he's selling it. That's inspirational to me because I didn't know no one that did that. You know what I mean? I knew people that went to military after high school, if they finished it, played sports, sold drugs, or got an MTA job so they could do their 20 years and go retire down south.
Get that pension.
The only point of difference I knew in Jamaica, Queens was my father. He was a TV news cameraman, and he traveled the world. And he was very different, not in what he did. So Lo was one of the first people that looked like me, and that was my age, that worked in a world that was. So Lo's one of the big influences. Even him starting Awake. He started Awake way before I started Denim Tears. That helped give me confidence, seeing him doing it and doing it so well and so cool. Seeing him start his own agency, leave Preem, and it was just really inspiring because he was doing all that. I was still working as a sales associate in Marc Jacobs. So it wasn't even I was oh, I want to do that one day. I didn't even think that. I was just I just appreciate it so much. So it was inspiring in a subconscious way. Shaniqua Jarvis, another one, just seeing someone saying to me, I'm gonna do this photography thing, and then doing it right in front of my face as a Black woman. Mm. Who else? So many people, man. I say Tribe Called Quest, because they write from. I'm from Farmers in Keysville, and they're from Linden and Farmers. I'm from Farmers in Keysville, a 10-minute walk. So seeing dudes be art dudes, be they selves, but still accepted by the hood, that was me. I knew, you brought the Supreme team. I used to work at the liquor store, Grady's Liquors, that was Supreme, used to be up in there. Wow. You know what I mean? E-money bags. When 50 of them first started, they'd be hopping out the white van, come pick up liquor. I can go on and on of a rogues gallery of entertainers, street dudes, everybody. It was the biggest liquor store in Queens. I worked there. That was my job. After I got fired from a stock job at Saks, got laid off. And I worked at a liquor store, and, so seeing these things, it was just inspiring. And going downtown was my escape. Another inspiration is my man, Raheem. He's the first Black person I know of my age group to be an entrepreneur. He used to open his own barbershop. Unfortunately, a year or two after he opened his barbershop, it got robbed and he got killed. But so in two ways, he's an inspiration because he's the first young Black man I know to open his own business, but also, losing him as a friend and his family losing him, and seeing what the hood did to itself. When I got asked to go to London, I was yes, because Raheem wasn't a street dude. He wasn't selling no drugs. He was just a hardworking dude with a daughter and a mother. And I was just I love the hood. I love my people, but I got to go out to learn something to help this situation back here. Right. So that's kind of journey I've been on since that happened. So, but yeah, man, really, Angelo's huge inspiration, and there's other cats, but I'm gonna let Lo talk.
Well, Tremaine's really trying to butter me up for this intro tomorrow. I love you, Tremaine. So just caught me way off guard with that. I love you all my heart, Tremaine. Thank you so much. But Bond School of Hard Knocks.
Yo, I was about to say that. I was I wasn't sure if that was before your time or during your time or after your time.
I used to go to the store. My old Boulevard.
First Black-owned business to have a Nike account in any of the 5 boroughs.
Yep.
EOS, Elements of Style.
Yep.
Eli and them put it on for the borough. Any graffiti writer that got up on the 7 line, that was our museum in the 90s. NATO, Bruise, MQ. I mean, even the cats that came out from Bushwick, Scuff and Kes 5, all those dudes that just went so hard on the 7 line, kept a toy like me so inspired. You know what I mean? Of course, Tremaine mentioned Tribe, but also Organized Confusion, Mobb Deep, Nas, Screwball. Fuck, man, so many queens. Run DMC. Run DMC was probably the first hip hop anything that I heard as a kid. That was it made me want a pair of Adidas. My father laughed when we went to the sneaker store, and they were $50. He was no, got me a pair of Kangaroos. I was so heartbroken. The Q112, the Q8, the Q24, the Q31, Q10, all those buses just toughened me up. The 42.
Yo, they don't know what it took to ride the back of those buses, Angelo.
Nah, man, yo, you took heart. You took heart, yo.
I got jumped on the Q66 and I got jumped on Q31.
Of course, you get tested, man. Like if you sat in the front,
I got for my bus pass once.
All I know is that if you go automatically for that front seat by the bus driver, you're gonna get fucked with.
You're done.
You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta get past that back door exit, and you sit down. You gotta put your chest out, and you see what happens, man. Most of the times, you get your respect just for going to the back of the bus. But yeah, I'm
surprised that neither of you mentioned FUBU.
Oh, bro. FUBU is from my hood. Belly is based on the dudes that I don't want to get too deep into. Belly's based on dudes from my hood around the corner from me, Megan Avenue, that financed FUBU. Yeah, FUBU was inspiring, but I never really, I keep it funky. I never rocked it.
Right. I'm not going to lie. This is coming from me, so you guys are.
Yeah, nobody. Well, the truth. Large Professor. Let me tell you, the Large Professor and Nas, obviously, but like Large Professor, because like Main Source hit, and like Main Source hit. So like a lot of people don't understand how hard Main Source hit when it did. But anyway, nobody wore FUBU. But first of all, if we wore FUBU, it will all respect to FUBU, so because they put it on. Me and Tremaine will be here right now. You know what I mean? Like we went the opposite way. FUBU's here went. It was always about just consciously being different. Like as much as I love Queens, and I tell you also just all dance hall music. Just because of the neighborhood I grew up in, like. Just all the fucking hatchback Honda Accords with the fucking 5-star rims on them, with the Trinidadian flag on the roof. You know what I'm saying? Like blasting Super Cat or Shaba. Like I don't know, man. Like I said, that shit is it's such a beautiful place to grow up in. And then you got Jackson Heights, where it's little South America. Over here is where I discovered I was Ecuadorian. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really tap into my Ecuadorian until like high school.
Oh,
when I started running with like cats from the 7 line. But we keep I kind of keep harping back to like, if you grew up where we grew up, you kind of stay in your neighborhood. You really don't venture off into other parts unless you're ushered in. Like, all right, Jaeki got me with Flushing. I make sure I'm not gonna get fucked with no Asian kids out there. Boom, boom, boom. I got my pass, so Tremaine's gonna take me over to Southern and whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, cool. Like. Couldn't just rock. You couldn't back then, like in the early 90s. You couldn't just roll up to a neighborhood like now. Today, you could rock in any neighborhood. You couldn't do that back then.
Nah, you couldn't.
And just culturally, I just don't think it was as open. You know what I'm saying? Just because of social media, like I feel like there's a lot more familiarity, even for people just being able to access that information on your phone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild, man. Like even damn, it's like he opened it up with the stuff he was calling out. Like even the influences, like Coliseum Mall, Gertz Mall.
The Gertz was the sleeper.
Green Acres Mall. What was the store that had the steep techs and all the iceberg? S&D Underground. S&D
Underground.
Underground. Like
there's a Jimmy Jazz in every neighborhood, but the Jimmy Jazz on Jamaica's legendary too. BIM. The VIM on Jamaica Ave, legendary.
What was the name of the record store on Jamaica Ave? What that do?
VIP Records.
Yep. The VIP, and then there was the other one in the cut. They always have to have the signings. Man, so much stuff, bro. Like, Queen of the Sea. Did a lot of dance hall parties there. Man, Q Club.
Amazura.
Amazura.
But
Amazura, the first night it opened, ODB to perform. I couldn't get in. I wasn't old enough. Club Crystals, right on Jamaica Ave by the library. Jamaica High School. Just walking the Ave. Like,
you gotta walk the Ave, man.
Walking Jamaica Ave after school. Thomas, I went to Thomas Edison. You know, what was it? Nubian, the store on West Eighth.
Yeah, Nubian.
Yeah, that's the first place I could, besides Union, where you could buy. I seen you could buy kind of cool T-shirts with black people on it.
Right.
You know, Tommy Smith and them with the fist up. I bought that T-shirt from there. You know, the red, black, and green thing. That ain't a new thing. I bought. I remember I kept going back there to get the wristband. The red, black, and green wristband. It was always sold out. Unlimited. Recipes to the dude that worked in there. They had the Moschino. Remember that store in West Safe? They had all the Moschino, Iceberg, all the not even high fashion. It was the stuff that, you know, Jamaican kids we was wearing. We didn't even consider high fashion. It was just expensive shit that we fucked with. And then Union, man. For me, Union, like, I found Union by just stumbling upon it, and it changed my life. Union is like my Dagobah. Like, Luke went and trained at Dagobah. I went and trained with Wilkins, Ricky, Lowe, motherfucking Matt Priceless, Vito, and all the people that the Rogues Gallery of people that came through there, you know what I mean? And that's really where I learned how to design, by watching all these brands, independent brands, put their stuff in there. And I spent countless hours there, man, countless hours, hanging out and talking about life. You know, that's seeing the Frank. Like, yeah, it's wild, bro. You know, like, even Preem, it's funny, like, I didn't really fuck with Preem. Not like I didn't like it, but I didn't skate. So I was just like, I bought Preem for my little brother because he skated. He was the only person skating in the hood. I probably first person in Jamaica, Queens, in my side of the hood wearing Preem. First thing I bought from Preem might have been those, I don't even remember.
What year was this?
Man, this 2001, man. You know, like, because I was just like, we hang out at Union. We wear stuff from Union. Like,
yeah, that's still
Preem was cool, though. Preem was cool. Yeah. Preem was cool. Always cool, always dope. I remember James Jebby was trying to hire me to work at Stussy. And then he kept missing the meeting. And then I got the job at Marc Jacobs. You know what I mean? That's that's 2006, bro, 2005. You know, the parties, 90, you know, Vashti, parties Lowe would do, Sway, like, Lot 61, Lotus on a Wednesday, on a Sunday, man, Club Sessa, like,
I'm just nod my head. I was a little then. I was like 17, 18. So I know about it. I heard about it.
I went to Club Cheetah on my 21st birthday. Like, nightlife was an education too.
Right.
Big education in music, and then it continued when I moved to London. But man, New York, wow, unreal. Growing up a borough kid, you know, because Lowe is all city. We all city. There'd be days where I'd be in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, and Manhattan in the same day. All on train.
All right in the train. Yeah.
No cabs.
Yep.
You know, my best friend, he gonna be at the gala tomorrow. He was in Zulu Nation. I used to troop to him to the Bronx.
Okay, word. Okay.
I was never affiliated with no gang, but he was my best friend. He was in Zulu, him and his cousin Seth. I used to roll with them.
Angelo, is there anything you want to add? Like, it seems like, you know, there was like some anecdotes that were just oozing out of you as well.
No, I just hearing Tremaine talking about Zulu Nation, I just caught like a whole wave of like just like gang culture before it turned into like a Bloods Crips thing in New York, like just all the different kind of random gangs that existed, from like, I don't know, Latin Kings to La Familia, Nietas, all that stuff, you know, just navigate. Like, I forget, honestly, man. I forget how treacherous walking these streets were in the 90s, specifically. Yeah, it's huge. Like, and like Tremaine, when he's talking about walking the Ave, like after school, it's like gladiator school, man. Like, if you could survive that, then you could survive anything. You could walk through any neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, if you could survive Jamaica Ave at, you know, 2:33 p.m. on a Wednesday, like, you could go down to Knickerbocker. You know what I'm saying? Like, you earn your stripes. You could, you know, you could.
Notice he said 2 p.m. Not not 2 a.m.
No, 100.
3 p.m.
Like
2 p.m.
You know,
2 p.m.
I'm a couple years younger than you guys, but I definitely have my fitted, like tested on Jamaica.
Yeah, you already know.
Especially me as an Asian kid going over there, like to try to cop like matching fitteds to look like fabulous. Like definitely got
no joke. You had to really want it.
So
100.
Yeah. So that's you know, those are kind of like, you know, like memories that I'm going through right now, because, you know, I think for me and Tremaine, we both also have a very similar narrative where we left the borough, you know what I mean? And me also coming back. Like I lived on the Upper West Side for like 11, 12 years. And in the last 7 years, I've had this journey, like new kind of rebirth relationship with the borough, and kind of like tapping back into my youth. And like just being here is just like one big piece of memory food. But yeah, man, there's so much, there's more that I've forgotten than I remember, to be honest, unfortunately, at this point. But yeah, I'm just grateful, man. I'm grateful for this upbringing, free education. And I think also, just I'll leave it at this, man. The real respect, not just from Queens, but from any borough, especially like coming from a 2-fare zone or coming from the last stop of the train line, is the respect of the troop. You know, like to go from your neighborhood, jump on that train, and you're on a 45-minute commitment to get through like some really fucked up neighborhoods just to be able to have the freedom to express yourself. And I think that's a lot that this generation doesn't really understand. And I don't want to get like all nostalgic and hokey, but like if you wanted to skateboard, or if you wanted to do, you know, if you wanted to dye your hair pink, or, you know, you had an alternative, you know, like gender lifestyle, you couldn't do that shit in the neighborhoods we came from. You know, like you had to hide it. You had to hide that shit, put it in your backpack or whatever it is. And the minute you popped out on West 4th, you could be who you wanted to be, or popped out on Broadway Lafayette, you could be whoever you wanted to be. You know what I mean? So like that's a beautiful freedom that I love. I love that kids now don't have to necessarily go downtown to be themselves. They could be in their own neighborhoods and add on to their neighborhoods. And, you know, we have these like flourishing communities within the 5 boroughs now.
Right. Yeah, like I remember the first time I hung out downtown, I went to the LES by myself. And I was probably 19. There's this place that was next to Lucian. It had Roman numerals for numbers where I can get in there with without an ID. And I remember I almost cried the first time I went and I heard them play Raspberry Beret, because I got to hear the music my dad and my brother played at home in a club for the first time, because in Queens there's either hip hop, R&B, or dancehall, soca, which is incredible. But you're not going to hear Morrissey, you're not going to hear certain Prince records, you're not going to hear certain rock records, you're not going to hear Nirvana, you're not going to hear, and I'm just saying surface level shit. And then there's the deeper thing. You're not going to hear a DJ Harvey edit that someone plays, whatever. You're not going to hear that.
Like the deeper underground cuts, right? Like you're not going to see that as frequently in, you know, Jamaica Ave, compared to like, you might hear like a deep cut from like
like Q Lazarus, right? One of my favorite songs, Goodbye Horses. When I grew up in Jamaica, Queen, I'm not hearing that. No one's busting that record. So when I started hanging out downtown and go to these places and hear them playing hip hop, but then playing that too, it was mind blowing. It was like unreal. You know what I mean? And you know, and I just think there was this barrier that because of my parents, I was able to cross. I remember guys telling me, why you go down there? They would say, there's gay people there. White people don't want us there. They're gonna think we're stealing, and the food's more expensive. The clothing. I remember arguing with my man saying the Gap is more expensive in Manhattan than it is at Green Acres Mall, which is not true. But he was so traumatized by the way society is. I don't even blame him. He was afraid of being around white people, of being around different people. You know, even saying, I'm like, y'all going to BBQs, I'm gonna go to Lovely Day and maybe pay less and eat healthier, better food. In my opinion, a different type of food. Nothing but better. I still hit BBQs, but for them, they thought everything was Le Cert or like a Michelin star restaurant that they couldn't afford. They didn't know there was little spots you can go, and for $25 you can eat, or $20, $10 to eat. So just even that stuff seems so, to a kid now, it might seem so, what is Tremaine talking about? But it was that real. Literally, it was just me, Low, and a couple other people. Ferris Bueller. That's it. A couple other cats. That was it. You know what I mean? You know, he's a big inspiration too. You know, he was working in Def Jam and working with Ye and other people, and he always, you know, looked out for me and always invited me around, and you know, good dude. And yeah. But anyways, just like yeah, not to be nostalgic or go down the old head path, but it's just well, I did this pop up when COVID let up a little bit. I did a Converse thing. The Converses I did was based off Marcus Garvey, David Hammonds, and this Liberty Rock, this red, black, and green rock in my neighborhood. So I shot a film, had people DJ, had food, and this kid came up, and he had like a kind of like little, like a choker necklace kind of thing, like dog necklace. He had like some type of Supreme t-shirt. He had on shorts. His hair was kind of dreaded, braided, and he didn't have super long shorts on. And he was skating, and he pulled up on a skateboard and got off his skateboard and said, "Yo, you Denim Tears? Tremaine?" I'm like, "I'm Tremaine. Nice to meet you." He goes, "You from here, around here?" I said, "Yeah, I grew up here." He goes, "That's cool, man," and skated off. I ain't never seen that, bro. I lived in that neighborhood since I was 10 years old. I never seen nobody skating but my little brother on our block. So to see a kid dressed like that, a black kid dressed like that, and come up to me and say, "Oh, that's cool, you from this neighborhood." Amazing, man. So much hasn't changed, but some things have. So I love it. And that's why I love it.
I'm glad you brought that point up because I think, I mean, for me personally, like Queens has always been a cultural hub. Like we just discussed with the whole last 40 minutes, we've just been talking about different cultures in Queens. But maybe it just hasn't been a cultural hub for certain transplants, like you know, alluded earlier, Tremaine, that, you know, they don't really hang out outside of their immediate bubbles. So I've definitely heard more, I should say, like murmur from mainstream media about how Queens will be this new cultural hub, and you know, I definitely feel like
it's been a cultural hub though, because it's
action. Go ahead.
It's been a cultural hub because it's the most diverse place in America.
Right.
Queens, biggest borough. Get into New York, you got to come through LaGuardia or JFK.
Yep.
It's the most. Now I said that in the record. Anyway, yeah, but it's the most diverse. So it's been a cultural hub. Far as like subcultures, or it's more about kids in POC neighborhoods, working class or poor neighborhoods, being able to be trans, be gay, listen to whatever music they want, be exactly who they are, and be safe. You know, like people like Shane and Hood by Air. Y'all, you talk about what me and Lo gone through, but I'm just saying, Ian Isaiah, those guys and girls, what they went through, coming from the hood, and being, you know what I mean? We'll never understand that. So my main thing is the beauty I see is that that's changing, and kids can be them and be safe in their own neighborhoods and not have to just feel like they gotta go. Yeah, still go downtown, but you need to feel safe and be able to get the education, the good food, and feel safe in your neighborhoods too. And that's what's gotta happen. You know what I mean?
100. Angelo, is anything you want to add to that?
No, I think we covered a lot, man. I feel really good. I'm ready. I'm ready for the gala tomorrow. It's my first gala ever.
Oh, is that right?
Never been to a gala before, and I think I couldn't.
Raise your hands when they do the auction and all that.
I don't know if I'm raising my hands tomorrow for any auction, but I do look forward to getting suited and booted,
nice.
And getting my 2-step on, and then taking a 10-minute car ride to get my ass back home. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, I'm proud of Tremaine. So proud of him, man. I think being able to watch his journey, his path, and him come into his own as a creative. Yeah, man, it's been a beautiful thing to be a witness and to be a part of that narrative. You know, for me, that's one of the biggest cash and prizes of the work that I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. You know, so I look forward to taking this journey with Tremaine for another 30, 40 years, where we end up. So yeah, man.
Knock on Fiesta Gates.
Yeah.
Flags.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap this up, I actually just have like one more like question that I wanted to bring up. So, both of the brands that you guys have, Denim Tears and Awake, from the products that I look at, I feel like there are always stories conveyed, not only, through the graphics, but like actual initiatives. Like, Angelo, I know you donate like proceeds to community organizations, and even initiatives like social studies that has like workshops.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
For years.
Yeah, 100.
Before George Floyd, Lil been doing that.
Word. So like, but there's no lie that we are in a product first space, right? Fashion is a product first space. So, I wanted to ask you guys, because you guys are at the forefront of this, what are ways you think both like brands and consumers can cause holistic impact in this system that constantly suggests and pushes us to consume?
Great question. But we already answered. Look at what the people that Angelo cast in his campaigns, the people that shoot his campaigns, the stories that he tells through his clothing. Those Asics, which one of my favorite pairs, things that came out last year. That's the Ecuadorian flag. How many times have you seen the Ecuadorian flag on any clothing represented? In the history of popular clothing. Social studies, all that stuff. That's what it is. It's with us. I don't know if it's products first. If product was first, then I wouldn't have took this job at Supreme. I'd be a lot. And I'm not playing a violin for myself. I have a very beautiful financial life, but it ain't product first with Lo and me, because we would have did something really different. You know what I mean? And again, it's just so I don't think it's product first with us. We lead through story. And, Denim Tears is literally storytelling platform that currently uses clothing to tell the plight and the glory of African diaspora. So if I was doing product first, I wouldn't be putting Black Jesus with a cotton crown on a t-shirt. You know what I mean? That's a hard sell. Trust me. You know what I mean? I don't know how those cotton reef jeans popped off with the stories about slavery, no matter who wore them, so I wasn't thinking about when I made those jeans, I'm gonna sell 500 pair, or I was like, Levi's is giving me a chance to do denim. I'm gonna tell the story about slavery and cotton, how cotton built America. So I don't think it's product. Tell me if I'm wrong, Lo, but I just watching you.
I think I think it has a lot to do with the time that we grew up in, where there was messaging in the clothing, there's messaging in the graphics, and like you look at a company like P&B, like I would never know who Eleanor Bumpers was, or Michael Stewart, or even like Jesse Owens. I remember they put on a T-shirt, Malcolm X quotes, for me, I made a conscious effort to want to bring that back into the language of streetwear, because that's been lost, right? And now, in 2022, there's multiple companies that are owned by people that look like me and Tremaine. But if you go back, even 10 years, it wasn't like, it was super dry. You know what I mean? It was quiet for us. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like, it's not really about the product, but like Tremaine is saying, like, I think Tremaine is one of the best storytellers out there right now. And it's like, you're leading with the heart and you're leading with intention. And that's what people are really gravitating towards. And that's what the youth is gravitating towards. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, there's always gonna be kids that want to clout chase. But then, like, we're really pushing kids to think, and that's what these, for me, like the people that I name checked early on, they pushed me to think, whether it was, music, art, graffiti, whatever. It was just like, these people really challenged my creativity. They really challenged, didn't allow me to be lazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the kid that's into Denim Tears really is into Denim Tears and really believes in Tremaine's vision. The same thing that, the young boy or the young girl, that's into Awake, like they really believe in what, the messaging I'm trying to get out there. You know what I'm saying? So they really gravitate towards the intention, and really, you know, for me, the whole point of Awake is to evoke emotion. I want you to feel something. You know what I'm saying? Like same way, like I heard Shook One's part two, and my whole body just froze. I was just like, that's what I want people to feel when they see the Awake lookbook. Like I want you to be like, yeah, yeah, like,
yeah. And also, you just hit it. I feel Awake and Denim Tears. Our shit is based off Tribe, but really is also based off Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep, because especially Wu-Tang, because Wu-Tang was like the flyest, coolest, but there was jewels in that music.
The dots, the knowledge dots.
Jewels to it all throughout that music from the first album. You know what I mean? Like, and that's my thing is like, Awake, like I'm getting him to make me that suit from this last drop. I'm buying it. He's got to make one in my size, big boy size. But also, there's jewels in that shit, man. Just the casting. Even people don't understand how important the casting is. When I worked at J. Crew, I had to lose my job because I had braids. And you know what they said to me? This is in 2001. That's not a long time ago. They said, Tremaine, look at the lookbook. The lookbook. No one has braids in there. J. Crew would never do that now, right? They get canceled. That was regular. You didn't see no people that look like Awake lookbook on any level of fashion. Any level. Streetwear or otherwise. Ever. So people are got very used to what we're doing and what we're pushing. This is like a millisecond. As far as the fashion calendar, what Low and Virgil and Ghetto Gastro, Kirby, everybody, anyone of color, this is a split second. Just think about it. That Met exhibition, that's 100 years of fashion, right? I'm grateful to be in there. What black designers they got in there from the 70s?
Word.
What black designers they got in there from the 60s?
Mm.
What black designers they got in there from the 80s? All the black designers they got in there are from the last, 5 years, 10 years? They didn't even put Willie Smith in there.
I was about to say that. I don't even think they put Willie Smith in there.
Which is, they wilded out. They didn't put Willie Smith in there, who's also a big inspiration, because Denim Tears is inspired by Willie Smith, Grace Wells Bonner, Martine Rose, Awake, Stussy and Supreme too, and 40 Acres and a Mule. You know what I mean? One of the major inspirations. And Union, just all those brands at Union and stuff like that. So this stuff, what me and Lo and our constituents is doing, it's just happened, man. My career is 6-7 years old, man. I started doing this when I was like 34, as far as being able to do it and pay my rent.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Lo started Awake in his 30s. So it was a long road to get here, and I'm grateful for the road. But, I hope it comes easier, not sooner, but with more help and more understanding and compassion and fairness than it did for us.
Right. Yeah, no, it's appreciate you guys for your time, and I feel like we touched upon a lot of things. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I just say I'm very honored to. It is so. I had a meeting with Sally today, and Christine.
Tell us who is Sally.
She's the director of Queens Museum, and we met with the other honoree, and she showed me, Tremaine, let me show you the program to run a show, and then it just like said Angelo, everything he's done, and he's introducing me. Crazy, because it's like, Angelo, people don't know how deep it is with me and him. Like when my mom passed, he sent flowers to Harlem, Georgia.
Mm.
I can count on my hands, and I'm not knocking no one who didn't send flowers. That's how it is with me and Lo. And our crew, Shaniqua and Raj.
Yeah.
They all sent the flowers together. That's how deep it is. This ain't business. We do business, but it ain't business. This is friendships. Like Lo know my family, So for him to be the person introducing me, it's like it's like you hit the greatest dice roll or roulette game in Vegas history.
Word.
Because I know so many people, but there's no all the people I know. People see me, you know. I know this person. There actually is no person. Even my pops. And my pops is my best friend, but Lo understands my story more than anyone else. Him and only a few other people understand my story 100%. You know what I mean? Like getting on that E train, getting on the Iron Horse. So for him to be introducing me is like, it's so fairy tale.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful for that.
Right.
More so than the being honored. I'm grateful that Angelo is the person introducing me, man. It's incredible. I'm really grateful. Like, yeah, just gave me the chills gave me the chills.
Full circle moment. You know?
Yeah, like having someone you looked up to for so long. You know what I mean? That's incredible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get to stay friends and grow with people because life tears them apart. And we've just only grown closer through, I have to say, only through luck and intention. We work hard, we got good intentions, but also we lucky dudes. We're just lucky too.
Yeah. Angelo, anything, you know, would you like to add before we wrap this up?
I mean, once again, I said it before, man, but I'm proud. And sometimes, like, when you say you're proud of someone, it could come off a little condescending. It's not like I'm happy. I am genuinely happy for Tremaine and everything that he's been able to accomplish. And shout out to the Queens Museum. Shout out to the whole staff. That's we come in and we get the spotlight and we get to do the pretty things, the smile. But there's so many people behind the scenes that are making tomorrow happen, and that I'm also grateful and being able to, being able to see like how these kinds of like, institutions operate and work and how they put in a lot of hard work to make it happen. So, shout out to Highsnobiety also for shining light on this event and giving us the platform to kind of, talk our shit for the last hour. So yeah, man, that's all I got.
Yo, appreciate you guys. Yeah, man, that was dope.